Hello, welcome, good afternoon, welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Font. We're like, what in the world? Okay, good to see all of you here today. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe to me there. I'm also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I'll get to all the house cleaning stuff in a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to do was jump right into the stream. I have my guest with me, comedian, activist, advocate, and all-around great commentator. We have Ron Placone joining me this afternoon. Ron, so good to see you on the show.
What's up, buddy? Good to see you. It's been a minute. Thanks for having me back.
It's been a while, but you know what?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, when you haven't talked to a friend in a while, but you guys pick back up where you left off, like nothing's ever happened. That's how it feels.
Oh, I love it, man. Yeah, it's good to see you, dude. I hope all is well.
Yeah. It's going. Yeah, there's a lot of us that are going through it right now. But so as far as some things that were happening over the last few months, there was a particular type of campaign that was going on regarding internet bills, and these are a series of internet bills that has been in the docket that has really been, really bad for us as the people. If you want to get into that just a little bit to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there's a lot of, tech dystopian bills out there that have been proposed by various entities in our lovely Congress and Senate. And we knew that before the Senate recess, they were going to kind of push a couple. And the one in particular that they really pushed for was a bill called KOSA. Now, KOSA stands for the Kids Online Safety Act, which, of course, sounds great. Why would you not want that? Who doesn't want kids to be safe online? We all want that, don't we? But the sad thing is that this bill does not keep kids safe online. In reality, this is just a censorship bill. It wants to give government bureaucrats and other state entities the authority to say what is and isn't safe resources for children. And in particular, they're looking to censor LGBTQ resources and information from young people who need it. That's their agenda. The Heritage Foundation said that out loud, that they support KOSA because they want to keep, in particular, transgender resources away from people. And Ted Cruz was doing markup on this bill. So it's not a bill that keeps kids safe online. It's just a bill that allows dogmatic lawmakers to kind of determine what you can and can't see online, especially when you're a young person. So, and it would have a lot of chilling effects if something like this were ever signed into law. So KOSA did make it out of committee, which we kind of thought it would in the Senate committee. That doesn't mean it's a law, but it did make it out of committee. But a bunch of concerns were expressed. Ed Markey expressed some concerns, which, shout out to him. He did the right thing there. And that means it is not likely to go to the bill go to the floor anytime soon. Now, if it does go to the floor, that would be concerning because it does have some opposition in the House. It has less opposition in the Senate, and Joe Biden has expressed support for it. Now, of course he has. Some of these things could change because KOSA has gotten a lot of, there's been a big campaign around KOSA, and a lot of people have sort of flipped on it. I mean, there were some people who initially they saw the kids' online safety part and thought, well, this is a good bill. Of course, we're for keeping kids safe online. And it has bipartisan support. That means all kinds of when Democrats and Republicans work together, we just get sunshine and rainbows, right? So, they kind of got on board with it. Then when they really saw the concerns that were being amplified by basically every digital rights group and human rights group in the country, they said, oh, this bill isn't what it claims to be. And they kind of flipped their stance on it. So people can go to badinternetbills.com, stopkosa.com, sign the petition. If you've already signed, calling is really effective. And we just got to flood these lawmakers. I mean, the fact that they didn't get it to the floor as quickly as they wanted to is a good sign that they're feeling rattled by us. So we just got to keep it going. I mean, look, at the end of the day, these politicians, they don't really serve you. They serve the donors. So
Mhm.
the only power you have is when you are so loud that you worry them that if they do something, it's going to cost them their job. So,
Mhm.
you got to overwhelm them and you got to say, hey, you signed this into law. Everyone's going to remember it next election time, and you might not have your job much longer.
Yeah. There's something actually I want to expand a little bit on the COSA bill that you were actually talking about. This is out of the Houston Chronicle. It says Katy ISD, that's a school district, blocks LGBTQ plus resources, suicide prevention websites from students.
Mhm.
And this is what the scary part about it. It says KDISD blocks several websites of organizations that serve LGBTQ plus children, including suicide prevention hotlines through the district's student intranet, a Houston Chronicle analysis found. And it says that the group of students and advocates say limiting access to these sites makes it more difficult for kids in need to reach life-saving resources such as the Trevor Project, a suicide hotline for LGBTQ plus youth, and an advocacy nonprofit. They also argue censoring material aimed at helping kids sends a harmful message that their identities are not validated and their lives are not valued. So really, this is a life and death situation, because if you're basically blocking the resource for children to be able to go to these sites and say, hey, I'm part of this community, I have suicide ideation, I need help.
Yeah.
And if you block that from them, then is it really life saving? Because it sounds more dogmatic and ideology preserving than life saving, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and this is just I mean, this is an instance from 2021, and this is one school doing it. So imagine that being done on the mass level.
Mhm.
Imagine, the entire state of Texas doing this, or the state of Florida doing this.
Mhm.
That's basically the door that would be opened if something like COSA were ever to become law. And, since this campaign has happened, there have been a ton of young people that have expressed serious concerns.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, look, there's people out there, especially young people in the LGBTQ community, that maybe they don't have a supportive family. Maybe they don't
Mhm.
really have, and I mean, I'm sure, I mean, you can probably, just speak to these issues better than I can,
Mhm.
but you hear about it. I mean, you hear about their family's not accepting or their family's not supportive, and they so really they have to turn to these resources online. I mean, I know people who are in that situation in my life. I'm sure you do in yours. It's these resources really are life-saving, and to take it away from people who already have it pretty tough, just kind of getting through things. I mean, it's really terrible.
Mhm. And it's interesting because a lot of times people don't realize one of the biggest factors in youth homelessness is because of them being part of the LGBTQ community and their parents finding out and kicking them out of the house.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these kids who you see out on the streets are really just kids that were kicked out because of their identity. The problem is that if they're trying to get resources in order to find help so that they may be able to sustain their life so that they won't end up, you know, offing themselves, then really you're taking that resource away and making it more dangerous for their lives. And you're basically saying at a state level that you don't matter. And that's the dangerous part. And when it comes to laws like this is why they'll they'll put it as protecting kids, but in reality, they don't even want to recognize us. And I know some people are going to see this phrase as controversial for me, but gay kids exist. You may not want to think that they exist. I'm talking to the people who may be disagreeing. You may
Yeah.
not want to think they exist, but I was a gay kid at 8 years old. I knew that I liked the same gender, the same sex. It was not anything that was imposed upon me or anything like that. We exist. And therefore, because you have people who don't want us to exist or want us to go back into the closet, they will make laws so that we are not aware of resources that can actually help us to thrive. And so this is why it is so important, because as somebody who has suicide ideation multiple times throughout my life, I wish I had resources like the Trevor Project or different resources like this to call or to go on their websites in order to preserve myself alive. And I'm lucky to still be alive to this day.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that's the thing, that's what they're trying to take away from, this generation of young people. And, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, first of all, yeah, I don't know what it's like firsthand to be part of the, LGBTQ community. But, and I can also only imagine what it's like being a young person today with, I mean, it's like some of these, there's a lot of toxic stuff that happens online too. So it's like you need resources to really balance it out, I'd imagine. And, the idea that like you're going to take that away from them, well, especially just leaving the toxicity, it's just, I mean, it's just straight up barbaric. And it's just straight up yeah, kind of like you're saying, like, okay, if you know, it's pretty sad that we're living during a time where such a statement like the one you just said is controversial to some people. Like, hey, yeah, gay people exist, trans people exist. That's not controversial. It's very sad that we haven't moved further than that as a society. But sadly, we haven't. So we gotta just stop archaic laws like this. And this also just goes into the whole religious freedom idea where it's just like, what? Freedom of religion means you can practice whatever you want as long as you're not bothering anyone else. It doesn't mean you get to make your dogma and bake it into people's laws. You don't get to do that.
Yeah. It's really a determination of what you can do, not for you to determine what society can and can't do. But
yeah,
I wanted to move on because that wasn't the only bill. So, and you, me, and Sabby Sabs have actually talked about the Restrict Act.
Yeah.
At length. A lot of people are more aware of this and they think that it's basically a TikTok ban, but in reality, it's not.
Well, I mean, it would potentially ban TikTok, but that's one of many, many things it would do. Like that's sort of that's like sort of like just chipping the top off the iceberg as far as what it would do. Like it's not like it would just be, hey, TikTok's gone and that was the entirety of the law. Like the actual bill is even worse. Like it does like way more than that. So basically it demonizes any entity like apps or, third-party software or news websites that comes from anywhere outside of the United States.
Like RT America, things like that.
Yep. Yeah. Anything. I mean, it messes with something called the Bourbon Amendment, which is what allows us as American citizens to see information from other countries, and a president can't decide what is and isn't news. This basically blows a hole in that, which means Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, whoever's president, can just randomly be like, hey, I'm going to ban the BBC, like whatever they want. I mean, just any entity from outside of the United States. They could be like, I'm banning this. You can't see this anymore. And they'd be allowed to do that. The Restrict Act, it also demonizes apps from other places, which of course includes TikTok. So it would set the stage for a TikTok ban. And the other interesting part about the Restrict Act, and I know that we talked about this, you, myself, and Sabby, is that one of the big promoters of this bill, I don't know if he's an actual co-sponsor, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but one of like the kind of big faces behind this bill is Mark Warner.
Yes,
who is
Mark Warner.
who is one of the wealthiest members in all of Congress, in the House, the Senate, one of the wealthiest members, potentially the wealthiest. And he also, an area where he has a ton of investments is in domestic software. So he has this bill demonizing anything from outside the United States when he has all this money invested in stuff that's in the United States. So it's a total self-interest bill, and it's just baked in xenophobia and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And that hearing, I covered that hearing on that live when it happened, and it was the most ridiculous. I mean, it was just so painful. Just they were being so disrespectful to that gentleman from TikTok. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was humiliating. I mean, just as an American citizen watching that thing.
Yeah.
And then the stuff like, and that whole thing revealed that it's like, look, are there security concerns around TikTok? Totally. But they're the same security concerns that exist when you log into Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or you name it, Snapchat, whatever. You get the idea. In fact, that hearing taught us that Facebook and Instagram in particular are worse than TikTok. They do more with your data than TikTok does. They're worse. They
You're
are
actually
worse.
safer with TikTok than you are with Facebook.
Yeah, you're safer with TikTok than you are with Facebook. That's why, I mean, it's so, I mean, the irony is just so blissful when you see people complaining, oh, we just need to ban TikTok. They're saying it on Facebook. Like, you serious? They're just like, oh, TikTok, it's just such a bad platform. It makes us all more stupid. Oh, yeah. And a social media platform has never done that before. TikTok's the first one. I don't know about you, JB, but Facebook has made my father-in-law a scientist, a medical doctor, and a philosopher. We're very proud of him. So yeah, it's just so amazing, the propaganda.
Yeah, you had sounded like Peter Griffin right there. Yeah, TikTok is dangerous. We should get rid of it.
Yeah. TikTok. I can't do a Peter Griffin. That was my attempt.
Yeah, but my thing though is crazy.
Lois, I'm on TikTok. That was bad. That was not good. I'm not
Peter,
Peter.
we can't just ban TikTok.
Peter, why would you ban TikTok? It's just a platform like any other platform.
TikTok,
You have a pretty good Peter.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, I try a little bit. But
we're dating ourselves by referencing Family Guy. We're I don't think anyone watches that anymore.
Oh no,
I think that's sort of just. But I remember. I mean, we both remember when that was like. I mean, I remember in college, like the Family Guy theme song was like you would hear it on any given dorm room floor at any given time. There was always somebody watching Family Guy. Always. That show was just everywhere. Family Guy was just, man, couldn't get away from it. And it wasn't that popular when it first aired. Like it first aired and it was just kind of like whatever. And then somehow, man, the DVDs just like the DVDs went viral physically. Because that was back when people would still buy DVD sets. Yeah. Oh, fuck. I'm just going to stop.
We remember DVDs, kids?
Yeah, right? Tell us more, Grandpa. What else did you?
When back in my day, we used to go to a place called Blockbuster Video. Well, whippersnappers, you're streaming.
I do miss the old-fashioned video store. I mean, they're still out there, but you really got to dig for them. You got to like make the effort to shop there, which admittedly I don't. But man, I do kind of miss that. It's a special thing. Who wants chowder?
But so, one of the things that I honestly do think that it is egregious because someone like Mark Warner pushing his own, really for his own financial gain, is willing to sell out the American people because he is invested in an industry that he has money, he has a vested interest in. So it just shows. And the thing is that a lot of times when you talk about the Restrict Act, the first thought to a lot of people is, oh, that must be a Republican that's starting that. When in reality, it's not. It's a Democrat.
Yeah. I mean, it has a lot of bipartisan support, but yeah, I mean, the Democrats are not great on any of this stuff. I mean, you do have a handful of Democrats that are pretty good on digital rights policy. Typically, Ed Markey is usually good on these issues. Merkley in Oregon is usually good on these issues. Presley sometimes will at least voice support.
Okay.
Rokana is usually good on digital rights issues. But I mean, again, it's like, I mean, you can't always count on people going to the mat for it when it really matters. You know, I mean, you can usually count on them to vote the right way. But you know, Peter Welch is usually good on these issues. And again, when I'm pointing this out, I'm talking digital rights. I don't mean like every single thing, but like but you know, digital rights usually there are some people in office who you know consistently are pretty solid on these issues. And it's usually because they just have a digital rights organization that they ask questions to, which is not, I mean, Bernie Sanders usually gets digital rights right. You know, I mean, he was the only presidential candidate in 2020 to come out in support of a facial recognition ban. I'm going to go out on a ledge here and I'm going to say that, you know, the 80-year-old guy from Vermont isn't necessarily, you know, on the cutting edge when it comes to technology as an individual. I mean, maybe he is, but I tend to doubt it. I just think he asked the right people. I think Bernie asked the right people and, you know, frames a perspective.
Yeah, I mean that kind of goes like against the whole like, well, if they're older, they're not going to understand. No, there's a lot of older people that can and do understand. I mean, look, yeah, people saw like Dr. Cornel West. He's 70 years old and he's running for president. You know, and there's a lot of things that would excite young people, of course. Yeah. You know, and my thing is that you have some people that you know they have there's two schools of thought. There's excuse me, either there is a restrict people's rights for either personal gain, or they have this belief that things are just run amok, or you have people who want to understand, and then as they understand, then they can maneuver, you know, well. And it's kind of funny because it also depends on who you surround yourself with. KRS-One, I don't know if I can play it on here because I don't want to get copyright claim, but there's KRS-One's talking to a young woman. She's interviewing him, and he said, when young people listen to older people, they move faster among younger people. When older people listen to younger people, they move faster among older people. And then when younger people and older people actually listen to each other, that's when you have it's called culture. And so basically, the thing is that you have a lot of elderly people in Congress and in the Senate who don't listen to younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they think that the internet is just this, you know, wild, wild west. And then so they think that, oh my God, kids are being subjected to all this crazy stuff, when in reality, it's not that simple. And so they don't listen to a lot of us who are saying, no, this is how it should be done. And so I think that people, you know, like I have a lot of issues with Bernie, but the fact that he actually listened to younger people on this subject is actually a good thing. And I think that a lot of people need to listen to people who are who are younger on some of these issues that they don't understand.
Yeah, or just someone who kind of covers the beat. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be a tech genius to understand basic tech policy, nor do you necessarily have to be young or old. It just has to be, you know, kind of an area that you sort of dwell in. And, you know, I mean, you have some elected officials that listen to these organizations a lot, who just listen to the lobbyists. And, you know, I mean, there's plenty of young people who, you know, younger people in office who get it wrong. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's, and as far as like Bernie and people like them getting it right, I don't know. My friend Tim Carroll has a great song. It's called "You Can't Stay Young, but You Can Stay Cool." And you know,
that's us, man.
Yeah, man. No. I think that's a good sentiment to try to live your life by. I actually play that song every year on my birthday. And it it hits harder and harder with every passing year. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely older now, and but you know what they say, you can't stay young, but you can stay cool. And
Yeah.
and the problem is like Joe Biden was never cool, so it's like
No, he was never cool. Trust and
so
believe
yeah, I mean, it's just it's one of those things. And then going big picture, like, you look at what we're facing with the climate collapse. You look at what just happened in Maui. You look at what's happening in Italy. You look at what is happening in Alaska and Canada. I mean, it's here. We're freaking here.
Yeah.
And we really need to start taking solutions seriously, and that's an understatement. And the thing that really sucks is that we're going to need some top bottom leadership here from governments all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not seeing it, at least not in the United States. I mean, some other countries are doing some pretty good stuff, but the United States certainly is not going to lead. They're going to be dragged kicking and screaming
Yeah,
politically. And you look at our global village, which is just the technology we have, our apps, the internet, and you look at this and you think this can be an essential tool in helping us build a better world.
yeah.
Or it can be, a dystopian surveillance hellscape tool.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's up to us. And that's why I take digital rights as seriously as I do, because I see the connection between, no pun intended, but I see the connection between digital rights and labor rights, digital
Mm-hmm.
rights and climate change, digital rights and democracy and news and information and free speech. I mean, all of those issues that are very heavy pillar issues in our world can be very connected to digital rights. So it's like when you
Yeah.
let bills like this get in, and that's why they tried to squeeze it in before the August recess. They're like, look, COSA has a lot of stigma around it, deservedly so. So let's just try to squeeze it into these must pass spending bills when people are asleep, and let's make them laws. That's how they got the Telecommunications Act in 1996 through, because they knew
Yeah.
that if people really knew what that bill was, no one would want to see that become law ever. So
Mm-hmm.
they pushed it through the dead of night, relying on a bunch of people to not even understand what the hell it was. And, they completely ruined news and information completely. That's what that bill did. So now we see new iterations on that for the internet. I mean, that's how they got rid of net neutrality. I mean, that they kind of just, in the dead of night, Trump's FCC just sort of rolled back net neutrality protections. But people were awake that time, and they started kicking and screaming, and so we got a bunch of state net neutrality laws through, which is sort of holding the front line till we can get it back federally. So yeah, man, I mean, these issues are very much connected to other things that are really that are really important. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I appreciate you expressing that. One of the things I wanted to add to your point is that when we're online, that's an extension of ourselves. This is an extension of yourself in the digital realm,
mm-hmm.
and then it comes out in life. And when people don't realize that, like, for instance, a lot of people say, well, Twitter or this site isn't real life. It is. It's just you're using a channel to go through in order to affect real life. When
Mm-hmm.
we say things on Twitter, for instance, we're not saying it just to put out into the ether so that nobody reads it. We're saying it because we expect other people to read it. We expect it to hit their minds and maybe their hearts as well. So there's an expectation behind it. That means you want it to affect somebody in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, Twitter is real life. Facebook is real life. Going on different sites and reading, studies that have happened out in real life that are put online so that you get that information that if it affects you in your life, it is all real life. So the thing is that when these corporate dictators influence our politicians in order to restrict our access online, that's just restricting an access in real life for us. And that's honestly what I see it as.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, look at the monopoly Amazon has, the near monopoly Amazon has on online commerce. The fact that they have that allows them to exploit their warehouse workers the way they do, allows them to exploit, all their workers the way they do. They wouldn't be able to do that if they didn't have this dictatorship online. And Cory Doctorow framed it this way that I thought was like really brilliant. He was like, imagine if Amazon was an actual physical thing, which now they actually do have some physical storefronts. But he's like, imagine if Amazon, just the whole idea of Amazon and Amazon's place on the internet was an actual physical town where it's like, okay, this one guy runs the town and you can sell your stuff here, but this one guy gets to decide where your stuff gets seen, where your storefront can be. And by the way, this one guy can make duplicates of whatever it is you're selling if he decides to do so. And then his duplicates get shown first when your storefronts gets pushed into some warehouse or something, or some basement where no one's going to see it. And that's the free market, baby. Like, imagine if a place like that existed where there was just this one dude going like, hey man, those pillows that you hand make, those are pretty cool. I'm going to make a duplicate of those and a knockoff. My price is going to be lower and I'm going to push you down to the basement. Everyone's going to see my pillows now and not yours. Thanks. I mean, just imagine if that was like a real place. People would go nuts. People would revolt. But that's what we have online. And that's why we need antitrust enforcement online. And again, I mean, it's one of those things like people are not paying attention to these things and they're not realizing it's like when you let people do this, when you let big tech, because that's what big tech really is. Big tech is the Mark Zuckerbergs, they're the Jeff Bezos, and the people who lobby on their behalf. They're the Elon Musks. Like, that's what big tech is. That's what their agenda really is. They want to monopolize e-commerce completely, and they want to monopolize their profits, really. And the big solution for all of this is better data privacy for people, so that they can't just be, so that Facebook has found a way, and it's not just Facebook, although they're just the biggest culprit. Facebook has found a way to profit off of us like thrice. They profit off of us because they sell to us, because they're hearing everything we see and or hearing everything we say and do, and everything everywhere we go on their website. So they sell back to us. So they get money from advertisers that way. They use our data as a product. Our data is the product, so they make money that way. And then the third way they make money is just keeping you on the site in general. So it just inflates their numbers by feeding you stuff that's going to keep you on Facebook. Better data privacy blows a hole in all that. But, they would never go there because better data privacy would actually hurt the pocketbook of Mark Zuckerberg. It would actually hurt the pocketbook of all these moguls. And they don't actually want to do that.
Yeah. In fact, just to, put a finer point on it, you were talking about kosher, and there was a video on TikTok that actually talks about it. And just want to go here and we can finish up on the other side.
So let's talk about KOSA, or the Kids Online Safety Act, that is being presented in Congress this upcoming month, and why you should be worried about it and informed about it. So this was a bill that was presented with teens and kids' mental health in mind. And basically the solution is to, quote unquote, give tools to the parents and kids to regulate and modify their internet experience. What they're not saying is that this bill puts queer and minority creators at risk, as well as puts websites and apps such as TikTok, AO3, Wattpad, Tumblr at risk of being deleted and wiped. Go to this lovely creator's account right here, go to their bio, and they have a full link tree full of open letters and petitions that you can sign. It is very easy. It even puts you in contact, as well as has a full script where you can call your senator or lawmaker and actually take action. All of this information is on this creator's page, and I did again want to amplify something that she said, which is you can't just sit around and cry about it. If you really do enjoy the freedom of expression that we have on websites and forums like AO3, like TikTok, you need to call your senators and lawmakers. You just need to. Here's a screenshot of her profile with the link tree, as well as all these.
And so
Amen.
The thing is that a lot of times, when I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just uttering agreement with the creator there. I mean, amen. And I think that kind of call to action with a little bit of frustration, that really hits home. Where it's like, look, sometimes you just got to. Sometimes you just got to, because I hear people, they're just like, well, I don't want to. I mean, I'm tired of petitions. I'm tired of this. Look, I get it, but this is how it works. This is how lawmaking works in the United States, and it's a really shitty system, and we are grossly disadvantaged.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, yeah, you just have to. You just have to apply pressure to your lawmakers, because that's the only time we win. We only win when somebody is scared they're gonna lose a job. And so it's like, you got to,
And in fact, pressure is is good, because it actually makes sure that things get done. And sometimes you got to scare them a bit.
You really do. I mean, dude, everything. I mean, in the past year or so, here in California, Gavin Newsom has signed a couple things that I've been happy about. He signed a pretty extensive climate action thing that, even though it's nowhere near as much as we need, it's a lot better even than what we're doing federally. So it's a step in a better direction. He signed the extensive statewide broadband bill here in California. He signed something to allow the creation for more public banks. He finally committed to a fracking moratorium. Of course, he was handing out fracking permits like candy. So I'm not, but at least he finally did a moratorium. When did he do all of these things that I liked? When he was scared he was going to get recalled. That's when he did it. He did it then. I mean, so it's like, yeah, whenever they're in a place where they're just like, oh man, people are really ticked off because I'm not doing my freaking job.
Yeah.
I gotta give them something. And that's the only time. I mean, at least as far as California, the other time he signed some good things is right near an election year. Because it's just like, well, an election's coming up. I got to do some things that the people are going to like. I mean, it's BS, and it's sad, and it's corrupt to the gills. But unfortunately, it's what we have. And while we're simultaneously fighting for a better system, we got to fight for the laws that will help us get to that better system.
So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm sharing the link to bad internet bills. It's pretty simple and easy. Just put bad internet bills.
Yeah, it's straightforward.
Straightforward.
So, badinternetbills.com, and the other big one is stopcosa.com.
Yeah.
And you don't have, I mean, you can read about all these bills too, from those websites and see the information links. You don't have to just take my word for it. Like you can do some digging, and obviously we don't have enough time to go through every single bill. So yeah, check it out.
Definitely. I do have one tip on Rockfin that I want to read while you're still here before I let you go, because
sure, man.
I think Roger Meadows said something, and I think that it might be advantageous for you to react to it as well. So let me share the screen really quick.
Do it, man. Roger's a cool guy.
Yeah, Professor Xavier type of guy. Always teaching me stuff. Roger says, I caught you from the beginning this time, James. I gave YouTube my best angry black man. They made sure to let me know your show was on. So I got some updated news for you in EPB, in the Chattanooga broadband thing. Remember when I said that they're faster in the country at 10 gigs? Well, yeah. Keep this title. Uh-oh.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. Let me take a look at this, because, man, God, Roger's a resource. If you guys don't follow Roger Meadows on his Twitter, you guys better. See, so this is EPB launches America's first community-wide 25 gig internet service. What?
Yeah, man. Chattanooga's got the best. They got the best. Yeah, man, because
Ron,
Yeah, back in 2014, Chattanooga just wired their grid to have community broadband. Like they have like when I talk about municipal broadband, this is what I'm
Okay.
talking about.
Okay, hang on. Before I get into this really quick, because I don't want to take too much of your time, because I know I said like 30 minutes. But here's the crazy part. Okay, so you know Nico House, right? Nico just moved to Brazil. And he was like, man, my internet is 3-4 times faster than when I was living in the United States. And I was paying good money for great internet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
somehow, for some reason, they have more municipalized broadband in their country. And United States is way richer than Brazil, and yet he has better internet. And so from seeing that to seeing this,
yeah.
it's not that we can't afford it or we just can't have it. Is that I honestly think that these internet service providers are literally throttling us on purpose.
Well, I don't think it's so much they're throttling us. I think it's more they just don't invest in infrastructure because they don't have to. Like
Yeah.
it's as simple as they have basically an organized duopoly, which is more or less what they have. I mean, I know there's technically more than two companies, but they have it broken down where it's like this is Comcast territory, this is AT&T territory. I mean, they basically operate like the mob pretty much, and they don't put money into infrastructure because they don't have to. They're the only game in town, and they're a for-profit entity. So they just want to make as much money as possible. So they're going to keep infrastructure costs down and they're going to keep prices up. So you pay more and get less when it comes to internet. In a municipal broadband situation, your internet is being run by your city. And guess what? Whether you are the mayor, the richest resident, or the poorest resident, we all want our porn to load fast. So usually they have good infrastructure because internet infrastructure is not like some Rubik's Cube. It can be done. I mean, there were farmers in the UK, like a group of farmers in a rural area in the UK. They didn't like the internet that was available to them, so they just laid cable down underneath like some of their land with Tractors, and they have like amazing, fiber broadband now. It's not rocket science. It can be done. It's a policy choice here in the United States, and that's why I'm such a big municipal broadband advocate. And like Chattanooga is one of the biggest success stories. There's other success stories. There's North Dakota also has a lot of municipal broadband going on. They also have the oldest public bank in the world. Or not in the world, in the United States. I don't know about the world, but yeah, the oldest public bank in the United States. There's a lot of this stuff. It does exist here. And I think that's part of the problem with just the United States as it exists, because we're such a freaking big country that it's like when we do have these wins, a lot of people just don't know about it. In like smaller countries, like when something like this happens, well, it spreads really fast throughout the rest of the country. So it becomes a national thing quicker. Whereas here, we're just so goddamn big that unless you really stay abreast of this stuff, there's still tons of people who have no idea Chattanooga is Gig City, USA. They don't know that. Or if they do know that, they have no idea why. Like that's still like that's not a common thing people know still. That more people know now than they did like 3 or 4 years ago. But, it's one of those things.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And so I shared that link to everybody. I just want to be respectful of your time because I know I went over.
No, it's cool, man. I always enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for having me. And sorry I was a minute late because my webcam did a little reboot on me.
Nah, you
had a surprise.
You were fashionably late, which I wish I was as fashionable as you are.
Well, I appreciate it, man, dude. I always love coming on your show, and I love what you do. And if you don't mind, I'll let folks know if there's any international folks listening. I'm getting ready. I'm leaving for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival next week. My shows are August 16th through 27th. I'm part of the Free Fringe. So if anyone's in Edinburgh, Scotland, and going to the Fringe Festival, I will be there August 16th through 27th. My shows are at 4 p.m. daily. Part of the Free Fringe, so you don't need tickets in advance. Just show up, and you can get more information at my website right there, ronplacone.com. And, my movie should be coming out. My goal is November. So hopefully by November, my movie will be finished and screening and available. And I hope you'll have me back on to talk about it once it is out.
Just let me know and you're on, dude. Oh, Roger says one more. Hang on, one more for you. Okay. All right. And then I gotta let him go because he has places to go and things to do, people to see.
All right.
So let me just do this really quick. Let me see. Where is it? Okay, here we go. All right. So Roger Meadows. So Ron, regarding the public banking bill, someone from the public banking community I am part of, Newsom put a poison pill in there to say that they have to have FDIC membership, which means they're limited to cover insurance only $250,000 of taxes. That is unnecessary because public banks are their own FDIC. When they are allowed to be who they are, they can cover hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes. So my point is, whether we're talking about public banks or broadband, it doesn't matter how big or small government is that we argue with libertarians in the right all the time. That what matters is who controls government. If you want to make government work for you, then you must control the government, push citizen ballot initiatives, because even when the government passes something, it's always a string attached.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much, Roger. All right. So, yeah, thanks for coming, man. And be sure to, if you guys are international, get tickets at ronplacone.com. And by the way, go to his YouTube channel. I also have that linked in the description below, so you guys can get your news on with Ron. And also, you're on TikTok too.
Yeah, I'm not really good at it, but I am on it. I hope to get better at TikTok. It's on my agenda. I want to get better at TikTok.
It'll grow, trust me.
I mean, Twitter's just, I don't know. Twitter's my main one, and it's just so exhausting these days. It's just really not fun anymore. So,
yeah.
I mean, it never was great, but it's just way less fun than it used to be. And so I'm kind of like, I mean, I'm on Blue Sky, but that seems to not be really moving all that quickly. And I'm on Threads, but I don't know. I feel like everyone's scrambling to find like an actual Twitter replacement, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. So
something's going to happen, but I think it's going to be further down the line. But yeah,
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, it's like, I mean, it bums me out. The whole thing bums me out because like Twitter used to be, I would say, a very valuable tool. Like a valuable tool in finding, like what was going on in news, especially in like the more indie space. Now, because the algorithms are just all topsy-turvy, not that they were ever perfect, but they were better than they are now. Now, I just think its usefulness as a tool has completely went away. And it's, I just think it's very sad what happened to that website. I still use it because, it's still, I think it still has its usefulness to an extent, but it's such a bummer. It almost looks like a villain origin story. Like when you see like the old thing, then you see this like dumb looking X now. It's like a villain origin story. And it's like for a while I thought Elon Musk was actually trying to destroy it. But now I just think he really is that clueless. I think he surrounds himself with sycophants and yes men, and he really is that clueless on everything.
Yeah, he thinks he's a Elon Musk when in reality he's a Justin Hammer.
Yeah, it's a bummer, man. I mean, I wish they would have let him get out of it. Like he wanted to get out of it. I wish they just would have let him.
Me too.
But unfortunately, they were like, no, we're calling your bluff. 44 billion, please. It's like, shit. He's going to ruin it. And of course he did. Even quicker than I thought. It was a really quick ruin.
Yeah. He's not even a good supervillain. Gosh.
No.
Yikes. Anywho.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
All right, man. Take
right.
care. Have a great trip, by the way.
All right, peace, man. Be well.
Bye. Whew. Yeah. This world is ran by supervillains. Anywho, good to see all of you here today. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. Just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, you guys can go to my Substack. If you guys would like to get email notifications, go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so that you guys are aware of whenever I go live, because as we know that the YouTube algorithm is not that reliable, especially when it comes to notifications, so that you guys can know when I go live. So please make sure to do that so that you guys get the notices straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Why did I just do that? Anywho, so if you guys would like to, you guys can also do that. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can become patrons on Patreon to support the channel, or Coffee, or you guys can also become members. Yes, I do have memberships as well. Thank you so very much to all the members and the patrons on Patreon too. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this work at all. And just so that you guys know, here are the tiers on Patreon so that you guys are aware of what I have. So you guys have Solidarity, Comrades, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, and Super Duper Jaybefaunters. So if you guys would like to, you guys can always go to my Patreon if you guys wish to support the channel as well. Thank you so very much. Now, I'm going to go to the chat really quick, talk to a few of my peeps, and then we'll move on to our next story, which is crazy. I cannot wait to go over this story with you guys, because I saw this yesterday. I was like, ooh, I got to talk about this. Okay, so we have Miguel coming in and saying, peace. Good to see you, Miguel. Killian Grigor says, good morning, all. All right, we have the Quantum Alchemist says, hi, all. A 1 and a 2 says, get your news on with Ron. Gotta know what's going on. Yup. Absolutely. Ron is a class act. I got to tell you, he's a really good guy. Love having him on. Killian Grigor says, JB looking sharp. Thank you so much. Cobra Commander says, it is a good morning. QuakeCon just released Quake 2 Remaster. Quake is my favorite game, and I've waited 30 years for this. So pumped. Time to frag. I have never heard of that game before. Is it a computer game or is it on console? Let me know in the chat. All right. Soul Construct says, hi, all. So good to see you in the chat as well. All right. Now, who else do we have? Dun, dun. Rick Solis coming in, also saying hello. Good to see you, Rick. All right. We need critical thinking says, reverse the end of neutrality and bring net neutrality back. Since the end of net neutrality, they've been less free speech and data caps are legal. I stream 4K and get ripped off. We go over. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It sucks. And I honestly think that we could have so much better. All it would take is investment in infrastructure. But the thing is these corporations, these private entities do not want to invest, because that means that they would actually have to have less profit. So they have no incentive to really invest in order to create better infrastructure. This is why it needs to be taken out of private hands and put into the public. Because once it's in the public hands, the only things that we really need to pay for is operations and just basically operations and maintenance. And then any extra little bit that goes into it can be invested into creating it larger or more powerful. So we can actually have better internet service provider through the city or municipality than what we have now. And then on top of it, because it's done through the city, then it is more readily available to everybody. And if it's cheaper, and then it's also going to be cheaper. So it's going to be cheaper, but the quality is going to be better, because you don't have to have a profit incentive for it. Old Man Barker is in the chat saying, hey, buddies. All right. Good to see you, Old Man Barker. All right. Well, Wadi Pilgrim is giving shout outs to everybody. Good to see you, Wadi. And then we have yeah, I can't spell that. I can't say that. Well, I don't understand. But good to see you on the Twitch side. Sorry. Not exactly sure what's being said there. Ryan Wagner is in the chat saying, I made a video game based on the Iraq lobster bit from Family Guy. Oh, gosh. All right, so it says, even the newest Call of Duty games deep down run off the Quake engine. Okay. All right. So what are we talking about today? So this is another story that came across my view, and I was just like, what in the world? Let's get into it. So Ron Placone was just on bad internet bills, he was explaining, and suspended. This is an interesting story. So state attorney Monique Worrell versus Governor Ron DeSantis. I got to tell you guys, I saw this on local news and I was just like, what in the hell happened? Like, okay, let's go. Let me just share with you guys the article first really quick, because I was just okay. Governor Ron DeSantis suspends Orange Osceola State Attorney Monique Worrell from office. Now, why would you suspend a duly elected state attorney from office? What reasons do you have for doing so? As Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday announced the suspension of Orange Osceola State Attorney Monique Worrell, a decision that has been looming over the prosecutor since February, when the governor condemned her office following a deadly shooting spree in Pine Hills. At a press conference, DeSantis said Worrell has been clearly and fundamentally derelict in her duty and said her policies justify her removal from office. Let's stop there for a second. Her policies justify her removal from office. But my question is, who put her there? Last time I checked, back in 2020, she actually won the election by 66%. She won her election handedly. So if the citizens of Orange and Osceola voted for her by 66% of the vote, then apparently they actually wanted these policies. That means democratically, that's what they wanted. But because Ronnie has a problem with it, because he doesn't like it, he's like, well, we just got to get rid of her. Now, let's be real. I am not a Democrat. You guys know this. Some people who are just watching me may not know this. I'm not a Democrat. I do not feel that the Democratic Party is strong enough on issues like housing, workers' rights, healthcare, war, and military conflicts. They're not strong enough on these, meaning they're not strong enough on giving healthcare for everybody. They're not strong enough on giving housing for everyone. They're not strong enough on workers' rights and the ability to unionize or build worker cooperatives, right? And worker-owned businesses. They're not strong enough on many different things. They're not strong enough on getting education for everybody. They're not strong enough. They're very weak on these issues. However, for someone to be duly elected by the people and for you to remove them based on their policies that they elected them on 66%, and you decide to remove them, sounds to me is very dictatorial and fascist. Let's continue. It goes further. In his executive order, the governor said Worrell's office had a pattern or practice to avoid mandatory sentences for gun crimes, drug trafficking offenses, and allowed juveniles to avoid serious charges or incarceration altogether. He also accused her office on limiting charges for child pornography. Now, here's the thing. As far as minimum mandatory sentences, right? If anybody hasn't noticed, Monique Worrell is a black woman, right? Let's go to what mandatory minimums are, because a lot of people may not realize that really it's steeped in racism. So let's look here. This is out of the Brennan Center. It says, in mandatory minimums, inflexible, harsh sentences exacerbate crime and racial disparities alike. It says, dismantle America's dehumanizing and racially skewed human caging system. We must eliminate mandatory minimums. Forget swinging the pendulum on tough on crime leniency. It always swings back. Instead, we need a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift occurs in 3 phases. It starts with dominant paradigm, moves through a crisis phase, and it is on a revolutionary change in worldview that constitutes a new dominant paradigm. Says the dominant paradigm in the criminal legal system is the myth that imposing harsh mandatory minimum sentences and locking people of color in cages are necessary to keep white people safe. At the federal level alone, mandatory minimum penalties form the cornerstone of the human caging system. Prosecutors' use of mandatory minimums in over half of all federal cases disproportionately impacts poor people of color and has driven the exponential growth in the federal prison population in recent decades. All 50 states and DC have mandatory minimum sentencing laws. So this goes into really just a racist type of law that really just disproportionately affects us. And I'll share this really quick too as well. This is from innovativeinjustice.org. It says, the impact of minimums differs starkly by race. We found Black people are more likely to be arrested for felony and, among those convicted, more likely to suffer imprisonment and more likely to receive a minimum sentence. It says, given the role of minimums in intensifying racial disparities, the most impactful reform would be to eliminate the prospect of automatic incarceration entirely. However, in an effort to inform policymakers, our analysis concludes that by projecting the efforts of a range of partial elimination scenarios with a particular eye on racial equality. So the thing is that that's why Monique Worrell is against mandatory minimums, because it has a racial disparity. And of all people, as a Black woman, she realizes this. So let's go back to the article. So DeSantis says prosecutors have a certain amount of discretion about which cases to bring and which not. But what this state attorney has done is abuse of discretion and has effectively nullified certain laws in the state of Florida. He said, so he is taking her out of place and then taking a judge, Andrew Bain, and appointing him as state attorney in the place of Worrell. And so Bain is actually a Black man. And the thing is that it's like, okay, so you replaced her with a Black man. Is that going to be someone who the people approve of? Well, first of all, he's appointed, not elected. So therefore, of course, he's not really what the people have actually decided on. And so for somebody, this feels politically motivated in a extreme case. Because the thing is like, okay, so you put a black man there. Well, to be honest with you, it's just like saying, well, I'm gonna take this black woman up and I'm gonna put a black man there, even though he agrees with everything that I want to do. So it's a blackface in a high place. This is no different than a Tim Scott or a Candace Owens, putting them in that spot. Meanwhile, this guy Bain, Judge Bain, was actually part of the Federalist Society, which is an extreme right-wing think tank. So for somebody like Bain to be appointed in that spot means that the democratic process has been subverted so that Ron DeSantis could basically take control of Central Florida, which has a massive black and brown population, especially in the area where I live. So, there is more to this story. I actually have a Twitter thread that I want to share that actually goes into the timeline that explains what happened to Monique Worrell. Let's share. Okay. So shout out to Judd Ligum. He says, on November 3rd, 2020, Monique Worrell was elected state attorney in Florida's 9th Judicial District, winning 2/3 of the vote. Now she's out of a job. Ron DeSantis suspended Worrell, criticizing her for handling a couple of cases. His criticisms don't stand up to scrutiny. Says, during the event announcing Worrell's ouster, DeSantis treated his removal of a duly elected official as a joke. A sheriff who shared the stage with DeSantis held up a placard with a meme-inspired image of Worrell and a house on fire proclaiming, "This is fine." DeSantis chuckled. As you guys can see, remember how they say, that you have that meme that says, "Oh, this is fine." So basically, that's basically what he has up. So really, they're treating this very trivially, even though it's supposed to be a serious issue. So it's just like two college frat dudes that are laughing over something serious. It's crazy. Says DeSantis has focused on a couple of cases that argue that Worrell is incompetent and neglecting her duties. DeSantis took issues with Worrell handling of the case of 19-year-old Keith Moses, who accused of fatally shooting 3 people. Moses, who should not have been on the streets because he was arrested 20 times before, DeSantis said, "I can't believe they let this guy. You have to hold people accountable." But all of one of Moses' prior arrests were juvenile offenses that occurred before Worrell took office. And only 4 of those juvenile arrests were felonies. In 2 cases, Moses broke into unoccupied vehicles and stole stuff. In a 3rd case, Moses was arrested as a passenger in a stolen vehicle. The final case was for robbery and battery, but Moses didn't have the gun. It is unclear how the cases were resolved, but juvenile criminal records are not public record. Worrell explained that Moses was out on the streets because he did not commit an offense and that would have required or even justified life imprisonment. The one Moses case that occurred while Worrell was in office involved a traffic stop, and the police approached the car. Someone threw a firearm out of the window, which could have potentially constituted as a serious crime. But the police failed to conduct DNA testing of the gun. The sheriff's office called the failure to conduct the DNA testing a misstep. As a result, Moses was only charged with possession of a small amount of marijuana. Worrell did not believe that she could prove the marijuana possession case in court and declined to prosecute, which I'm going to be honest with you. That sounds reasonable to me. Like, first of all, marijuana should be legalized. By the way, we actually have medical marijuana legal in this state anyway. So, I mean, to be honest with you, even if you get caught with marijuana, you get a fine. So why are we going to jail somebody over something that you just typically get a fine over anyway? Like, make it make sense. So it says, regardless, Moses was not going to serve a significant jail sentence for possessing a few grams of marijuana. It says DeSantis and his allies were also criticizing Worrell for her handling of the Dayton Veal, who's accused of shooting two police officers earlier this month. Veal was previously charged by Worrell's office for sexual battery, but was freed on a $125,000 bond. At the press conference announcing Worrell's ouster, she was criticized for not keeping Veal in jail. But it is the judge, not the prosecutor, who decides the terms of a suspect's release. DeSantis claims that he's suspending Worrell over a dereliction of duty on crime. The data does not back this up. The state data shows that between 2020 and 2021, the crime rate per 100,000 residents dropped by nearly 10% in Worrell's district. It's down 52% from 12 years ago. So if you look at the actual data, she's actually been successful. And mind you, a lot of people who are the GOP, who would be prosecutors, they would be touting this as a victory. Oh man, the crime rate's down 10%. And over 12 years, it's down 52% in this district. That's a victory. But apparently, not to people like DeSantis, but let somebody else be in there that does things that he wants, then he'd be touting that as a victory. County crime data is not available for 2022 and 2023, but just this week, the police chief of Orlando, which is the largest city in Orange County, where I live, shared that so far in 2023, violent crime is down 10% compared to last year. Shootings are also down 30% from the prior year. Shootings being down almost a third? That's wild. That's good. Shootings down 30%? And yet, you're going to suspend her for dereliction of duty? Yeah, this feels politically motivated. Deeply politically motivated. It says essentially, nothing DeSantis said at the press conference holds up. This is the second time he's ousted a duly elected Democratic state attorney. The last time, a judge ruled it was unconstitutional, but DeSantis did it again. So this is not the first time that he's done this. This is actually spoken about when he actually did it another time. So I'm going to share this as well. Let me make sure. Let's get it straight from Monique Worrell, exactly what happened. So that we can hear exactly what she has to say. This is wild, man. I remember when she won. She won handedly, bro. Handedly. So here's what she has to say.
All right, well, good morning. I think this is the moment we've all been waiting for. If we're mourning anything this morning, it is the loss of democracy. I am your duly elected state attorney for the 9th Judicial Circuit, and nothing done by a weak dictator can change that. this is an outrage. 3 years ago, I was elected by the people of the Ninth Judicial Circuit to lead this circuit. And yes, to do things unconventionally, to do things differently. But I didn't hide. I didn't say that I would do things and I didn't do them. I didn't say I wouldn't do things and not did them. I did exactly what I said I would do. And that is what you want from an elected official.
So what does she promise? So let's go to this piece here, because people like Ron DeSantis have issues with the things that she believes in. And to be honest with you, look, so this was some of the things that she had pledged to do. It says, implement policies to hold police officers accountable for misconduct. That is a problem, according to people like DeSantis. Holding police accountable? That's what she ran on. Holding police accountable. So, interesting, right? Mind you, Democrat, and I don't necessarily agree. I think Democrats are weak on so many things, and I think that they don't go far enough on a lot of things. But she ran as a progressive. And then Ron DeSantis decided to oust her. So, hold police accountable and the use of cash bail. So, when it comes to the accusations of, oh, well, she didn't push for people to, to have bail. Well, of course, she doesn't believe in cash bail. And as we all know, like the old phrase goes, if you have to pay, cash bail is basically a way to, it's a classist policy so that the rich people can pay the bail and get out. But if you're poor or working poor, if you are put in jail and the only way you can get out of jail is paying bail, you're stuck. So it's a classist policy. And Monique Worrell doesn't believe in it. So therefore, for a lot of crimes, she doesn't feel that bail is necessary, which I agree. The thing is that, it's like the phrase, if the punishment for a crime is a fine, then it is really just a crime. It's a crime for poor people, not for rich people. It's really classist. Now, the next one is expand programs to divert children and adults away from jail. So this actually is part of really keeping people out of prison and jails so that they don't end up becoming slaves within the system. So this is another thing that somebody like Ron DeSantis doesn't like because, well, he's a corporate shill. I mean, there's many Democrats that are too, but at the same time, if you're keeping people from going to prison, then you're ruining the gravy train for the prison industrial complex, which people, like corporate dictators don't want. And so they want Ronnie to say, hey, stop it. Partner with community programs to address mental health and substance abuse issues. And the last one is advocate for resources to support the needs of crime survivors. So the thing is that this is some of the things that she was for. So she is, definitely on the left part of the spectrum of the Democratic Party, even though I still do think that the Democratic Party is a right-wing party. So she's on the left side of the right, I'll put it that way, in my view. And so that's what people like Ron DeSantis do not like. Now, let me see. I hope if I play this, local news station, will it? I hope I do not get a copyright claim on this. Let's throw the dice. If anything, I can just mute it afterwards. So
I am today announcing the suspension of State Attorney Monique Worrell from the 9th Judicial Circuit, effective immediately.
Governor Ron DeSantis announcing the suspension of Orange Osceola State Attorney Monique Worrell, accusing her of neglect of duty.
We have live team coverage of Worrell's suspension. Greg Fox looks at the political fallout, and Dave McDaniel looks at how law enforcement is responding.
We start with West 2 Stuart Moore live at the Orange County Courthouse. And Stuart, what led up to today's announcement?
Well, Jim and Nancy, today's announcement is a culmination of a lot of tensions between Monique Worrell and the Governor Ron DeSantis' offices. For months, the governor has criticized how Worrell's office prosecuted crimes, while Worrell maintained that she's simply upholding the law. Now, hearings and trials are scheduled to continue as usual for now. The court canceled them until 1:30 this afternoon at the announcement of Worrell's suspension. Now, in his announcement this morning, the governor said that he was suspending Worrell for neglect of duty and negligence and incompetence. He specifically cited cases, including Friday's shooting that left 2 Orlando police officers wounded. The shooter in that case, Dayton Veal, had been arrested earlier this year for raping a 14-year-old girl on her way to school. Now, a judge allowed him to bond out of jail, but the governor and state attorney blame Worrell, saying she should have asked the judge to hold him in jail without bond.
And we can look to see all these different instances of people who have committed criminal offenses, victimized people because they were not held accountable in accordance with the laws of Florida when they had the opportunity to hold them accountable.
And
so the thing is that when somebody like Monique Worrell, when he says hold people accountable, what does that mean, though? Especially if you have laws that are unjust, right? And the thing is that, let me ask you this. If anybody who is a cop or a, state attorney, district attorney, if there's a law that is unjust that has came into effect, because look, a lot of laws that are unjust, like hell, the 13th Amendment and the second part of it is unjust. Are you going to uphold that law even though it is unjust? I mean, look, slavery used to be the law. We literally had a war over it. That's my question. My question is, as far as Monique Worrell, and he's coming up with extreme examples, but who allowed the judge to place bond? It wasn't Monique Worrell that, said that he can bond out. It was the judge. So if you're going to go after anybody, then shouldn't you go after the judge for dereliction of duty instead of Monique Worrell? But he didn't want to. He went after her instead. Who is an officer of the state? Isn't the judge also an officer of the state? And yet he decided to go after the prosecutor. Let's continue.
Furthermore, Governor DeSantis and local law enforcement cited a number of local cases in justifying Worrell's suspension. The most recent included Worrell allegedly dropping that case on Dayton Veal's case. Veal, who was shot and critically wounded by 2 Orlando police officers Tuesday night, was free on bond for a child rape case at the time of that shooting. DeSantis says holding people accountable could have prevented even more violence.
But crime is down 10% and shootings are down 30% over 12 years. So is she not doing her job?
And we can look to see all these different instances of people who have committed criminal offenses, victimized people because they were not held accountable in accordance with the laws of Florida when they had the opportunity to hold them accountable.
Now, DeSantis also cited the deadly shooting of 16-year-old DeShayla Ferguson and her unborn child of last year. Replacing Worrell as interim state attorney is former Judge Andrew Bain, to serve the duration of Worrell's suspension. Baines most recently served as Orange County's judge in the 9th Judicial Circuit. He also served as assistant state attorney in the 9th Circuit under state attorney Jeff Ashton. Baines sent a letter to staffers today saying in part, quote, "Today was as unexpected to me as it has been for you, but I am happy to be home again. I want to ask you for your patience as I evaluate the needs of our office. Effective as of this morning, you are authorized to continue exercising your duties under my authority as state attorney. With your help, I have full confidence in a successful transition."
The funny thing is, yes, Quantum, their quantum alchemist says, oh, so she actually delivered on her promises. You know, the funny part is that if she actually delivered on her promises, then she actually did what she was elected to do. And yet, Ronnie got a problem with it. So, hang on. Let's go to here. Dear God. She was elected. Anyway.
The only Black woman serving as a local prosecutor in Florida for what he says is a pattern of avoiding minimum mandatory sentences for gun crimes and drug trafficking, as well as being, quote, derelict in prosecuting serious.
So like I said, mandatory minimums is actually a racist policy. So you actually expecting a Black woman who is a state attorney to apply these? In fact, I honestly would think it'd be egregious if she applied those policies. But the fact that she's not means that she's actually applying her beliefs as such. And the thing is that, look, 66% of the vote. 66%. That's what we call a supermajority. That means she straight mollywopped the competition. That's what happened. 66% of the vote. And this dude comes out like a snowflake and goes, oh, she's not doing her job. When in fact she is. It's just she's doing it in a way that's more helpful for her community than the laws that he wants her to uphold. And it's not really even upholding laws. It's actually going and using the law to oppress. Anyway.
It's crimes by juvenile offenders. Worrell's pushing back, saying that crime in her district has actually gone down. She's also defending her prosecutorial approach of going after violent offenders while also giving some individuals a second chance. She's the second progressive prosecutor Ron DeSantis has suspended.
Is it okay for us to give people chances? Is that wrong now? And I'm not talking about any of the super violent people that anybody's talking about. What I'm talking about is the people that constantly are being put into jail for administrative offenses, things like not having their license and registration, even though they couldn't afford it. Somebody who may not have enough money for child support. Somebody who, not being able to pay, a fine or something like that, and they get put in jail. Is that what we're going with? And then on top of that, this isn't the first person that DeSantis has suspended.
The first was Andrew Warren after he signed a letter with other prosecutors saying they wouldn't use their offices to prosecute abortion cases. NBC News reports that last year, DeSantis actually ordered his staff to bring him the names of progressive prosecutors. State Attorney Monique Worrell joins me now. And State Attorney Worrell, thank you for being here. Do you remember your margin of victory when you were elected to be state attorney?
Good evening, Joy, and thank you for having me. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know it was a lot to a little bit.
So
66%, she won.
Ron DeSantis is now replacing you with the person you beat, essentially winning the election far afterward and essentially rerunning the election for the Republican Party. How do you interpret what he's doing? Is this just, a desperate move to get more support from, his supporters who might be a tad anti-Black and anti-woman or anti-progressive? What do you think it is?
Now, here's the thing. Could it be construed as anti-Black? Yeah. Ultimately, it's about anti-Blackness, but it's also about making sure that the people don't have as much power. Anybody, and this goes for both parties, anybody who moves into the direction of how the people want the government to run, whether it's local, state, or federal, that's a big no-no. For people who do the bidding of corporations, people like Ron DeSantis, even if you go slightly to the left of him, that's a big no-no. That's communism, even though it's not. So it's the same thing when you look at people like someone like they'll call Joe Biden a communist, even though he's nowhere near. I wish, but he's not. And so when you look at somebody like Monique Worrell, who actually is carrying out some of the positions that she said that she was going to do when she was running, that scares them. Because if they elected her with 66% last time, and she's running again in 24 for the same office, and she's actually doing what she said she was going to do, and crime went down by 10%, you don't think that they're not going to re-elect her? Like, how often do you have a politician actually saying they're going to do what they're going to do and then carry it out? That's dangerous. And by the way, she's not even further left that I would like. She's not even going far enough, in my opinion. I think she should go farther. But that's crazy, man. Anywho, let's continue.
So he's not replaced me with the person I beat, but one of the individuals that I beat is in second in command in the office now. The individual who he replaced me with, interestingly, is a local judge. And I guess Ron DeSantis thinks that if he swaps one Black person for another, then that will make the voters happy.
So what were you told? What was the notice to you when you were dismissed?
I received a call from one of my investigators this morning reading me basically a notice of my removal, telling me that I needed to not come into the office and to return all state property.
So yeah, it's wild how somebody like Ron DeSantis, based on just political beliefs, can actually take someone who you voted for and remove them simply for abiding by the principles that they got elected on by actually doing what they said they were going to do in office. And this looks like it's going to be set a very dangerous precedent so that they're going to do this across the country. And this is why, number one, we just need to change this system entirely. Shout out to Roger Meadows. I think citizen ballot initiatives are going to be extremely important to go around some of these governors, because really it is necessary for us to do, because they're going to try to screw us over every which way. And the crazy part is there was something that was said by my county mayor, Jerry Dimmings. And for me, this is one of, oh, here it is. One of the things that I say is, when it comes to cops, they ain't shit. They ain't shit. Let me show you. Says Orange County Mayor Jerry Dimmings, a Democrat and former sheriff, also husband of Val Dimmings. Y'all remember her. Said that he lacked the information to defend the actions of the state attorney or the inactions of the state attorney, while adding that the governor apparently has his reasons. This guy's supposed to be a Democrat, and he's like, well, he has his reasons. And then he says, what I've said before is that there has to be a high bar to remove an elected official from office, and I don't know what all the reasons were. And so, look, a cop is always going to be a cop. Like, this guy, apparently he's a Democrat. Just look, this is why I say they're all the same. He's supposed to be in her party. And he's supposed to share a lot of the same values that she does. And yet, nah, Ron DeSantis probably has a good reason. That's the mayor of my county. Black mayor. This is why I say leave the two parties, man. Get away from both these parties, man. Stay out of them. Because they'll all screw you over. Crazy. So yeah, that's what's going on with Monique Worrell. And it's a wild story. And from what I heard, that she didn't even know until she got to her office that morning that she was basically suspended. This is Florida, man. That's Florida. All right, so let me go to the chat. And then I have a special video I'll be showing to close out the show, because it's necessary. Trust and believe. All right, so thanks for the tip, Roger. Roger says that article was from last year. this month, and I wonder what Chattanooga is up to now and how far they got in sentence. The infrastructure, building it, maintaining it, and repairing it should be paid with our taxes as well as universal access. When private ISPs is concerned that they should be offering IT services beyond access, security, maintenance, management, upgrading, administration of private networks, all co-op owned. Yeah, very true. Thank you so very much for that. Roger continues, says, you have to check your state constitution, Jay. When Lee Zeldin, the GOP nominee for New York State governor, was running, he said the first thing he'd do is fire duly elected DA Alvin Bragg because of the political hit job he's doing on Trump when crime is rampant everywhere. The Constitution of New York State gives the governor the absolute power to do that. Florida Constitution may have the same provision. I think it does. He says, why black people throwing guns out the window? Isn't Florida a Second Amendment state? Actually, yes, it is, Roger. Here's the crazy part. The crazy part is it is, oh, I didn't mean to do that. It is now legal to possess a firearm in the state without having a permit. You can conceal carry without a permit in Florida. Conceal carry in Florida. By the way, a young Latino man last month, the month before? Yeah, last month on July 3rd, Derek Diaz, I think his name was. I reported on the police shooting him. Just 24 hours after that law came into effect, he was murdered over suspicion of having a gun. They suspected him of having a gun. And he still got murdered by police. By Orlando Police Department. I talked about that on RBN. So, yes, Roger, you're absolutely right. Let me continue. It should be made easy to get a gun. I had a customer who said to me one time, yo, where can I get a gun? It's mad hard to get a gun here. I said, bro, where are you from? He said, Florida. I said, man, up here in the blue, coming from the red, imagine the government firing a DA for not enforcing laws to put white-collar criminals behind bars for stealing people's entire home. Sometimes we don't need to pass new laws, but just enforce current laws. Sometimes you don't have to enforce laws on the poor. You can enforce laws on the corporate board class. Ending legacy admissions will stop the elevation of federalist judges to make it to SCOTUS. Very good point. I think we should outlaw legacy admissions too. Definitely. That would also be, yeah, because that's totally unfair. Great information, Roger. Thank you so very much. Soul Contract says, hey, Jaybefaunt, you are into books. I recommend this one. Nothing in this book is true, but that's exactly how things are. The esoteric meaning of the monuments on Marsby Bob Frissell. Okay, thank you very much. Keep that in mind. Cobra Commander says, in communist China is illegal for private companies to use your personal information on all social media. I wish that were true here. Ooh, what he says, Ron may not have what it takes to be president due to a lack of charisma, but he would be a fiendishly effective attorney general. He is very manipulative when it comes to the law. He is. Here's the thing, man. I honestly have a feeling that Trump is going to win again. But I would not be surprised if he appoints Ron DeSantis as his attorney general. And if Ron DeSantis is appointed as attorney general, guess what? 4 years later, he's going to run on, I was governor of Florida. And then I became state attorney. I became the federal attorney general of the United States. Blah, 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 yakety schmackety. And having somebody like Ron DeSantis that is an attorney general on top of it all is crazy. Soul Contract says, I live here too. Yeah, boy, you ain't saying nothing but a word. Florida is crazy. DC says all states should have constitutional carry. Here's my thing. A lot of people, when it comes to firearms, my thing is everybody talks about gun control when it comes to citizens, but they never want to talk about gun control amongst police. Because they're the ones who are also shooting this left and right too with impunity. That's all I got to say. And then if you want to decrease the amount of shootings and things like that, well, make it so that a lot of people won't need to turn to doing certain things in order to survive, which may also include protecting themselves with a gun. So if you wanted to, you can actually reduce the poverty rate so that people won't need to feel to defend themselves as much. Meaning that we won't need police as much. Which means if people feel safer, then actually they won't need as much of an incentive to buy a gun either. But that's just what I think. Always focus on the solutions to the underlying cause, not the symptoms. Soul Construct said if we all walked around with guns, cops wouldn't try to play God with us. Whew. They constantly are trying to play God with us too. It's sad. By the way, if you're LGBTQ, go to firearms training. I don't trust cops, and I damn sure don't trust some of these bigots out here. So look what happened with O'Shea Sibley. O'Shea Sibley should still be alive. But because some fuckwit with a knife decided to try to stab him just for dancing and voguing, he decided to kill O'Shea Sibley in New York. If you're LGBTQ+, learn firearms training. I need to learn it too. I actually have a friend who's libertarian who's like, dude, you need to learn firearms training. Go to crazy, I know. But yeah, that's what's going on. So did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and give the stream a like if you have not already. And if you guys haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. So if you guys would like to, then you guys can also please go to my Substack for email notifications, jaybefaunt.substack.com for those notifications, please, and thank you very much. Also, in addition, thank you so much to all the patrons on Patreon, Coffee, as well as members, and thank you to all the people who sent super chats and who send me any type of mutual aid. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this, so thank you so very much. Now, be sure to tune in later, not later as in today, but later as in this week, when I go over the next part, and Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. I'll be giving that a read, so be sure to tune in for that. And the funny part about this is that I actually get a lot of people who tune into my you guys look forward to that reading? Stay tuned. Also, I'll be doing the reading for Assata Shakur's autobiography, so be sure to tune into that as well later this week. Also, this Tuesday, I'll be having on Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report, We're going to be talking about what's going on in Africa and the latest developments going on there. The rhetoric that is surprisingly positive around a lot of African leaders endorsing and talking about a United States of Africa and wanting to open their borders and wanting to have their own self-determination and sovereignty among their nations and kicking out colonialism. It is an exciting turn of events to see. I actually cannot wait to talk about this with Miss Margaret Kimberly, or as affectionately known as Auntie Margaret. I can't wait to have her on. So be sure to be here on Tuesday at 2 p.m. because she's going to be joining me as well. And be sure to tune in a little bit later tonight. I'll be on RBN with Savvy Savs. We got a couple of things to talk about as far as pop culture. So we have some stories to talk about. One of the stories that we're going to be talking about involves folding chairs. You know what I'm going in. Okay, so it's going to be good. So yeah, it's going to be great. So tune in to that. And I would like to, we're going to close out, but we're going to close out in a different way. I'm going to share a song with you guys. It's going to be good. And then we'll close. You guys are going to like this. Let me make sure that I get to it. Let me see. Oh, got it. All right. Okay. So you guys are going to enjoy this, especially if you're a rap lover. This guy lays down some bars, and so I cannot wait. So to close out, we're going to share this, and then we'll end. So this is from Riley X. Shout out to Riley for this. Let's go.
She told me she wanted to ride it, it's down for the ride. I show up inside of this gate, ain't no love for the Jake. They throw us in cages, I thought we were free, but they keep us in chains. Little brother, why you gotta run around this town with a 4-pound heater, nickel plated on your waist? Wait, tell me you don't see these cops and Nazis block the spot. You get chopped if you ain't got your armor. Like, come on, bruh. Gotta keep 5 for the lynch. My clap one hand, whole crew suicide squad. The task for extra stress. You help you hold your breath, and that hollow point hit your chest. Like, I had my back to the wall, but I stayed 10 toes down, and I got in my pad. They was eating no man, flashing money and things, so I stopped him out like it was Stalingrad. I put it on blood that I'll fight to the end and keep dropping these hits for the comrades. Conventional warfare is over with, kill it, be killed, so you better adapt to that, cause I kneel to no man, suffer no king, sync up the plan like Amistad. I'm moving in silence, but the weight on my chest got me feeling like I'm out here on the warpath, cause these plates ain't aesthetic, no plastic Berettas. You gon' catch you a bullet if you think it's a fact, cause I'm tired of this labor and putting in hours so another motherfucker can run with the bag. And they calling me lazy, stack guns on the table, I can pull up the mass. Let's go. Bustin' through the back door with a RAV4 that I stole on the way over. Headed to your home, 30 round mag, drum pad, dough flash, bottle full of Jack, kerosene so grads, run up in your house dressed in all black, put a pail in your mouth. Now let me heat talk smack. Nigga, where the money at? Running 6'5", got an appetite, hungry, caught a couple cases, yeah, about a dozen. Beat him over, no police, so you know a nigga just bustin'. Bro, I was stressing it, moving that coca, like how the fuck am I affording this mortgage? I put in that work, but that check out the taxes and bailing up billionaires comes out to nothing. And buddy, I'm struggling, thought about hustling and moving and packs with some racks. Get grizzlies tucked inside my pants, and I'm out here just running with killers, cause I ain't going back to the crack and fuck them. Under no pretext, I keep the thing on me. MC's the damn means, cause nobody should be homeless. We gon' ride, we gon' fight, revolution what we wanted, and we ain't gon' stop the pressure till we take back what they owe us. I'm like, under no pretext, I keep that thing on me. And we seize the damn means, cause nobody should be homeless. We gon' ride, we gon' fight, revolution what we wanted, and we ain't gon' stop the pressure till we take back what they owe us.
So, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke him if you got him, drink him if you got him. If you ain't got him, then watch something funny, hilarious, because joy is revolutionary. And please make sure to, do what you can to fight against these internet bills that they're trying to push through that actually diminishes our free speech and our safety. That's important. But also, look, just do your due diligence when it comes to, looking out for your neighbors and look out for the people who are within your circle, and then maybe even expand the circle so that you can actually build class consciousness and solidarity among people. You never know. You may end up needing to depend on them, and they may end up depending on you, because that's how humans operate. And then you have something better. So, mwah, forehead kisses. Love you for watching. See you guys a little bit later on Savvy Sabs. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Oh, yeah. It's all coming together.